Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Looking Deeper. It's good to see you all tonight. Hey, Sandy.
Hi, Dana. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us.
It's good to have everyone in the house tonight. And for those of you that may be viewing at the moment or tuning in here momentarily, if you would be so kind as to like and share the show, that would be fantastic. Hello, Janice Francisco.
Hi, Janice. I'm putting on my slippers.
Sandy's getting comfy
They're
tonight.
cold.
Hello, Kelly Manson. How are you this evening? And
Hey.
Lily. Lily is in the house.
I have a little something in my tooth. I feel like such a hick. Let me clean up a little bit here. Okay, fine. Happy Easter, everybody. Happy and sacred Palm Sunday. Happy Holy Days. We are definitely in the Holy Days.
We certainly are. And, I was thinking tonight that really for the past few shows, we've been talking about death and dying and rebirth and all of those Easter sort of things. And tonight, here we go again. With the idea of living through every moment of life, including living through dying. And I feel like it's going to be a really great subject matter for this evening. And I'm going to adjust our screen just a tad. There we go. So, Sandy, as people are filing in, hey, Carla Joe. Hi, Lisa McCarthy. Kelly Spencer.
Carla, Joe, Kelly, Lisa.
Marianne Molika. Good to have you in the house. Lots and lots of beautiful souls with us tonight. But Sandy, would you take just a minute or two to bring us to a centering to prepare for this conversation?
So first and foremost, I want to dedicate our show to the beloved of my sister-in-law, Susie Herrick, Freddie D'Amato, who passed since our last gathering, and to the sacredness of, and we'll talk about it during the program, how spirit is so much bigger than we imagine, and to the holy time of Palm Sunday to Easter, not just the story of Jesus, but the story of our humanity, and how, without any hesitation, I can say with all the deepest respect in my soul that Freddie has been brought into the holiness of this time because he was frightened of how he would find death or how death would find him. So he was alive for every single second that he was granted breath and fought for each breath that would be granted him. So I would like to dedicate that to him, and we did his service yesterday. So, no, Monday, I apologize. So everybody take a deep breath, because this is about not just the energy of Christ or the energy of the Christ story, the energy of spirit and spiritos, the energy of the Holy Ghost, the energy of the Trinity, because it is this time, and for any of the holidays, for any of the other religions, please know that we bow and we join you in the community of sacred. So thank you for listening, and know that we invite you to communicate with us, to interact with us, to email us, to inspire us by your inspiration of being touched by who you are in your soul. So, deep breath and close your eyes. Breath is the promise that we are given. Breath is the experience that we have. To breathe is the power that all that exists needs to be able to activate and participate with. Whether it's plant, or oxygen in the water, or breath for the human, breath for all the beings. It is the breath that says you are alive, says life has finished its way with you as a living being in the flesh. It is the time of holiness. So however you believe, however you dedicate your spirit at this time, please allow yourself to inhale the fragrance of aroma, the fragrance of your holiday, the fragrance of the foods that represent the beauty of this time of season for your encounter with that holiness and sacredness that reminisces the foreverness of tradition and ancient ceremony. Know that we invite you to invite anyone who has passed, that is a beloved to you, anyone who is struggling with life and death, and anyone who is facing that place of transformation, transition, to be with us, knowing that if we are born, because we are born, because we are granted breath, the only thing that we all share in the equality of our existence is that our breath, our breathing will stop, and life is renewed in another dimension. So take that breath and inhale it with the right you have to breathe, asking it to light that flame inside you, ignite your memory, to inspire you to be you and to share your love. Quicken your heart and be sacred with all that you are. Holy, 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 blessed, 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 sacred, sacred, sacred. Another breath and open your eyes and welcome to our show. And I have a cold, so my breathing is like, thank you.
Thank you for that, Sandy.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. It's not the first time that you've ever presided over a funeral. You and I have both presided over funerals. And I had the delight to meet Freddie.
Yes, you did.
And Susie. And Lily was there with us as well. What a delightful human being, both of them. And to know through you how much he lived, even as his physical body was dying, was very inspirational. Heartbreaking on one hand, because he was just an amazing human being and an astounding spirit.
Yes, mighty.
Mighty spirit. And on the other hand, absolutely breathtaking in its honesty, in his honesty, of wanting to savor and eke every ounce of life out of life.
Yes. Yes. There's that beauty that you're speaking about, and I will personally take that time you're offering in our show for everyone to know that in the name of who Freddie is, to be so intimate in his passing, spirit became so evident again. And it's interesting because, as you know, even for being in the business, spirit comes and goes, and sometimes it's really raw and vibrant, and other times it's kind of far off in the distance. We have to go, where'd you go? What are you doing? I hope I'm still with you and you're still with me. There's never that conduit that just gives you the reassurance that it's with you whether you know it or not, because it does have that honesty of saying, hey, you paying attention?
Mm-hmm.
Do you need me? Do you know I exist?
Uh-huh.
Don't just take me for granted.
Right.
Be involved. And so with Freddie, and I want this to be able to include Susie also, and I thank them both for giving me the privilege of experiencing this, that when I stood at the podium at St. Jerome's Church, and gave the tribute. After the whole ceremony, my sister Diane gave a reading, and other people gave a reading, and the ceremony was it was a high mass. So we received communion, and Freddie brought me back to my childhood church. He brought me back to where I stood and spoke of my father at his funeral, my grandmother for her funeral, stood at my sister's wedding, went to church as the tribe, and also got to be there in that honor of knowing that St. Jerome's is there for me when I am in need of it.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't that kind of the truth of what Spirit is for all of us, Dana?
Absolutely.
That it has that compassion and that respect and that self-discipline to not banish us because we take a step away, but to receive us when we take that step forward again.
Absolutely.
How do you experience that in your life?
Well, I love the way that you expressed it. It never really abandons us. Spirit never abandons us. And as you were talking about that, you know, my Catholic roots, they show sometimes. In that, you know, I'm brought to the Stations of the Cross and brought to the Garden at Gethsemane. You know, why have you forsaken me?
Right.
And we all ask that question, and I'm certain that at some point Freddie probably asked the question, Susie asked the question, we all ask that question. And yet even in our feeling forsaken, we are never, ever, ever forsaken. We can feel as though we are disconnected or believe we are disconnected, but even in our belief of being disconnected, we're believing that we're disconnected from something. And that something, God's Spirit, Spiritus, Wakantanka, whatever we call that, is so pervasive, it is so there, and yet in our humanness we can forget it until we find ourselves in the garden.
Right. Perfectly said. The garden. Oh my God, there's so much for us to talk about. Because there's that beauty of what does forsaken mean?
Right.
Forsaken to me means when we pray for something and the way that we pray is for, I want it the way I want it. And when Spirit God or holy or sacred, whatever it is that you call it, doesn't give it to us the way that we want it, is that saying to us we are forsaken? When in all truth, we are not always granted the ultimate I want prayer. We are granted the answer to our prayer and pay attention to what's really happening, not just your wishes for something to happen. Pay attention to how it's happening, and don't go into denial that it's existing. Pay attention to the fact that if there is life, fight for it, and if there is death, be blessed with knowing you are not alone in walking it, because the one thing we all have to do is to die. And there's no guarantee on who dies first, who dies when, or when we die, and that is part of the mystery of life. And we have become very arrogant and selfish in some way in our new age with, if I pray right, if I get it right, if I do the right ceremony, if I have the right blessing, then I'll get my wish the way I want it, and life will be granted to continue. When sometimes life is so done that the life that's granted us is the life of Spirit. And that we're not shamed for failing to live, or shamed for not having the answer to our prayers be, please end the disease, please stop the process. So we're in a huge learning curve here, especially the way that you and I teach, in letting people know that the generosity of Spirit is that we participate with where we are rather than with the will we want it to bend to for where we want to be.
Exactly. Yes. Beautifully said.
Thank you.
In the letting go, in the becoming, and in death, those that are surrounded by the death also go through the process of death, because we are never, ever, ever the same in the moment that someone that we love has left the physical plane. So it's not just one person who dies, but it can be many people who die, metaphorically speaking. And because life is never the same, the question is then asked, who am I now? Who am I supposed to be? Where do I go next? And how do I define myself? How do I pick up the pieces? How do I claim who I am now and move forward with that? And is it okay if I just stay in a time of questioning, who am I now?
Right. There are so many different ways to express the end of someone's life by the person that continues your life that was involved with the person who had died.
Mm-hmm.
And hospice is such a great facility to go to because they coach you through it, they coach you to it, and they coach you beyond it.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody really is in need of hospice, before, during, or after, pay attention to their programs and take advantage of it.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I know about caregivers, and Susie being one of them, is that now not only has her beloved died, but her regime, her regiment, her participation in keeping him alive has stopped. And there's a void. Shivers on my shivers. With, wait a second, I was his advocate. I was the adversary to death. I was the one who fought for his life and provided him with life and made certain that he knew what he needed to do. And now, because it's gone, 90% of her day is vacant. Of ritual, of procedure, of process, of devotion, and of caregiving for life to continue. And it's hard to say to someone, you birthed them to the other side.
Yes.
Because the vacancy is so evident. And what I want to say about Freddie, because it's all, thank you all for letting me even talk about this, it's all so new, is that, if I may, 2 weeks ago, on a Friday night, I was going to get ready to go down and be with Susie and Freddie and take Susie to New York to a film festival that I was participating in, and a movie that I'm in called The Breast Archives. And as we got closer, it was, oh, Sandy, I don't think I need to go. I can't go because Freddie's kind of on red alert. And he had spent all day that Friday in the hospital, came home. She told me, but come on down. We want you here. And I have to be brutally honest, because in my exhaustion and in my fatigue, and more than that, in my will or my spirit, I didn't necessarily want to see Freddie as he was dying. And so I said, no, I won't come down, don't worry. You're exhausted, take time, da-da-da. And I made peace with, really quickly, I'm not going to go. But I gently lied about why I wasn't going. And I even said it in church. I just didn't want to necessarily see Freddie dying. And Spirit, the voice, God, went, oops. When that happens, it's like, get dressed, get going, get down there. And there was no longer a decision I made. It was an agreement I was keeping. We make promises to people that we don't even know, and I know you know that, and I want you to talk about yours too, that we didn't know we made a promise to be with them during their passing, their dying, their transition. And we have to be reminded, oh, this is one of those loving contracts, and go do what you need to do. Even if you fear it or uncomfortable, go do what you need to do. And when I got down there, Dana, what was so beautiful is Susie was at work, and I went upstairs, and I saw Freddie in bed, and you know those eyes he had. You know that beautiful character of him. He's
Mm-hmm.
a handsome man.
Mm-hmm.
And there he was, kind of tucked in his bed. He had this wild hair and he had this beard, which I had not seen. And I looked at him, and I'm going to be very blunt, everybody. I looked at him and went, damn, Freddie. For a guy who's going through what he's going through, you look kind of like a wild man and kind of sexy and handsome. Because he did. He had that feral beast in him.
Uh-huh.
And he winked, and his face was a little swollen. The cancer had him. It was throat cancer. And then I said, you look just like Moses. I forget the name.
Charlton Heston.
Yes. I said, you look just like Charlton Heston coming down from the mountain. So I'm going to look at those tablets, because if something new is written on them, I need to read them. He laughed, and I laughed. But he did.
Uh-huh.
He looked like Charlton Heston and Moses. He had that same wild light,
Mm-hmm.
which meant to me he was closer to God than we all realized, and he was bringing the tablets. He was saying, pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I crawled in bed with him and held his hand, and he has already lost his voice, but he had his eyes. And to be able to tell someone you love them,
Mm-hmm.
and have them feel it. We all need to learn to be able to say this while people are alive, living,
Yes.
not just while they're dying, hoping
Yes.
they'll live.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, and I'll come back again, but what would you like to share? Because I know you've gone through this too.
Well, I have. And, while you were sharing about Freddie, it reminded me of my Aunt Mary Lou, who was my absolute just favorite human being in the entire universe. And as she was working her way through lung cancer, I took the midnight shift with hospice. And I had a 2-year-old, I had a newborn, and working at the newspaper. And so the midnight shift was my shift with her. And I remember one time she loved to watch QVC. She was one of the funniest people in the world, loved Patsy Cline. And so sometimes I would be out in the living room doing whatever, and I would hear her singing Crazy or Walking After Midnight and just singing to herself. And I would walk in and she would be playing, a make-believe piano, and she was Patsy Cline live for herself. And if she wasn't watching QVC, she was doing her nails, and sometimes in her mind, sometimes out of her mind, depending on whether or not I had just given her a morphine, a bit of morphine. And one time she was sitting in her bedroom and I heard this calamity against her bedroom door. And I walked into her bedroom and she was laughing hysterically, and she said, "What's a person got to do around here to get a cold beer? For the love of God, I ain't dead yet, and I'd like a cold beer." She said, "I'm tired of everybody walking around here like I'm going somewhere. I haven't left yet. And there are a couple things I'd like to purchase on QVC, and I'd like to do it with a cold beer. So if you could make that happen, that would be great." And I remembered then when she finally took her last breath, how quiet all of a sudden. There was no more singing of Patsy Cline songs and no more QVC shopping going on or any of that sort of a thing. But I remembered very clearly thinking that was a woman who lived every ounce of her life until every ounce of her life left her body.
Exactly. Exactly. And, we're going to talk about this tonight of what does it mean to be alive while you're living,
Mm-hmm.
or even to die before it's time to die.
Exactly. There are a lot of people that are walking around, I call them the living dead.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who are the living dead for a variety of reasons. I mean, Sandy, you know people that are the living dead, that seemingly have life, and yet there's no ounce of life visible within them, around them, but most particularly in their eyes or in who they are. Why do you feel that is?
That's such a great question. And the sense that I have is, in Freddie's case, he wanted to be alive in such a way that he wasn't bored with life and he wasn't finished.
Mm-hmm.
So he never conceded, even while he was depressed, because he acknowledged he was depressed, that if he was given the chance to live, he was going to be alive in it.
Mm-hmm.
When I see people that are depressed and disassociated,
Mm-hmm.
Freddie was never disassociated. But when people are disassociated by their trauma,
Mm-hmm.
by their lack of trust in society, or their politics, or their faith, or in God, or their family, when they lose that connection, there is that regret to be alive, and boredom in being alive, and feeling useless about life. Or that they're wasting their time here because there's nothing to do. And that to me can be as profound as synapse not connecting, as chemistry not manifesting the serotonin, or a belief system that has overtaken the right for us to exist. And when I feel that somebody is really in that, if I say depressed, then it only means depression, so I'm not going to say that. In that lack of the sense that they belong to something bigger than themselves. And that there is a desire to participate. As soon as the desire to participate is over, we stop living and then wait to die. I know it's happened to me on several occasions, and then all of a sudden, boom, I can get up, I can move. And I also know that when I see somebody that loses their sense of identity, because nothing about who they are is mirrored to them, and there's injustice according to their idea of life.
Mm.
That they lose the faith to exist. Because the wrong side is given too much credit and permission to exist.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I agree with you completely. And one thing that stands out in what you just shared was the feeling of belonging, or the feeling of purpose.
Right.
Having relationship with other living things. I don't think that we came here to be solitary.
No.
I don't think that we came here to necessarily live on mountaintops and wear saffron robes. Some people do that. But I believe that for the most part, we are wanting to be loved and to love. And when any part of that equation doesn't exist, the will to live, the desire to live is extinguished. And I understand when people would prefer to be around animals than people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They find their purpose to be with animals, not necessarily people, because people can be a disappointment, they can be intimidating, they can be hurtful, they can be all kinds of things. It's where do we find the love while we are living? I wrote this piece a while back. And it begins from the moment we are born, we begin the process of dying.
Absolutely.
And all along the way, we are looking for home, which is love. And oftentimes in our human condition and on the human journey, we go finding love in all the wrong places because it smells like, it may look like, it may feel like love. And all along the path, sometimes love can be right there saying, here I am. Look to the left. Why are you fixated on the right? If you just look just a tad to the left, you're going to see love looking at you. Would you take a look? And oftentimes we can be so fixated on the lack of love or being in a place where love is supposed to exist, but by God it doesn't, which can include families.
Absolutely.
I'm supposed to have love with family, and I don't find it there. So there must not be love in the world. There must not be joy in the world. And yet, if you look behind you or up or down, there's love. So sometimes I feel for people who are what I term kind of the walking dead because they're dead inside. Sometimes it's just a matter of where are you looking for the love.
Well, there's such a beautiful thing that you're saying here because again, the New Age, back from the 70s on, the motif of love became find your soulmate, find your twin flame,
Right.
find the other in your life. If you get yourself right, you will find the one that will love you forever. And true love is true love, meaning, I can be hot and heavy in love because I can be hot and heavy in love. And it can break my heart, but it doesn't mean that I get to live with that person. And I'm just going to say this because it is what I have to say, that for the past 30 years or 40 years with the New Age, we have been convinced that we're not complete unless another loves us.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to be in the physical. And so there has been this severing from believing in I can love myself or I can entertain myself or I can be of something and share it with one or many, rather than I don't exist unless someone mirrors love to me.
Yes.
And this is the downfall of our society right now, with so many people saying, I'm not real unless I have a lover loving me. And right now we're kind of lucky because we do have people in our lives, but women of our generation are outnumbering the men. So, unless you're transgender, unless you're gay, unless you're following it, you have to take or looking at spirit. How do we really come to that? Who am I that loves?
Right.
Rather than I'm not loved, therefore I'm nothing. I have anger about that assumption. I'm not loved, therefore I'm nothing. It was a sales pitch. And a lot of books got sold, a lot of programs happened, and we need to somehow make who we are receive and offer the love, not just who do we have. Susie and Freddie have this love, but they're not who they are because of this love. They are who they are and able to love. That's different. Makes me want to cry.
Yeah. Your honey is in the chat room, by the way, Sand.
Go ahead, go for it.
Your love is in the chat room, Bobby.
Hey, Bobby. There's my love.
And Holly is saying that, she's learned in her life, sometimes you just have to let go. You just have to let go of the expectation of what is that going to look like, what is it going to be like, and allow it to come and to accept it in the form that it comes to you, love.
Right.
And sometimes it does come in a variety of ways. At the ripe old age of 5, I was already teaching Dane about the understanding or the knowing that I have that love is love. And it doesn't necessarily mean between a man and a woman. It could be a man and a man, a woman, whatever it happens to be, because our parish priest was on the nightly news because he had come out as a gay man. Well, the parish priest was our neighbor in the backyard, Father Marty. And Father Marty used to come over for coffee or, what have you. And so Dane said, what is that, Mom? What's that mean, Mom? And I said, sweetheart, love is love. Well, what's that mean? I said, well, sometimes, like Mom and Dad, We love each other. Sometimes it's two men that love each other. Sometimes it's two women that love each other. And sometimes it's people who love their animals. Love is love. Oh, he said, okay.
Out of the mouth of babes.
And that was the end of the conversation. And it has been his understanding ever since then. And it's never been, I mean, you know my kids.
Absolutely.
And you know how my household is. But the understanding that love is love, and to have a preconceived notion of what that's supposed to be like and who it is supposed to come from.
Yes.
What it's supposed to come from. And
I'm sorry.
Lily and I, we were on the reservation a couple of weekends ago, and we went to the children's home, the crisis center. And, you know, at one point I turned around and here's Lily with a little one on her back. She's giving piggyback rides. And I've got one in this arm, and I've got one asking me, could I just come home with you? And I've got arms full of children. And when Lily and I were driving back to Barbara's house, she looked at me and she said, Dana, they just want love. They just want to be loved. And in and amongst all 16 of those little kids is a little tabby cat that gets all their love. And I said, they do. They just want love. And I think that that's what we all want and need to receive, but also to give in good ways. And when that fire goes out on so many different levels, self-love, whatever it happens to be, I believe that's when the flame can go out while we are living.
Yes. Yes. If when someone loses the sight of feeling respected, when someone feels that the loss of their idea of the way life should be expressed is lost, there's a concave heart. To have a heart implode is serious business.
Yes.
Because broken hearts are broken hearts. You and I had a spectacular conversation today about how our hearts break. And it is a powerful healing to be able to trust that even when our heart is breaking, there is still love. I'm going to tell you a vision I'm having in this instant. It's what happens to us if something is breaking the case that is enclosing our heart, to find out what truly is inside, rather than to think about the only way that we need love is the way that we've kind of put things together and say, this makes love, this makes love, this makes love, this like myth, rather than blow that apart and find what is love. In my own breakdowns, in my own depression, in my own moments of huge agony, of going through that dark night of the soul, of knowing everything that I believed myself to be, to achieve the identity to present my parents their idea of success for giving me birth. That is a very powerful aspect of identity. That I would become successful to give my parents the success of giving me birth. How that kind of seeped into my consciousness, because I wasn't getting married, I wasn't having children, that I had to do it another way, and my relationship was with being ordained and being of spirit. So how do I get to prove to them I give them the honor of being not just my parents, but being proud of the fact that they created me. I prove them right for creating me. And to have it all fall apart in such a profound way then made me feel I lost the respect of their identity of me, their need of me to have an identity. And my identity to provide a need to even exist.
Wow.
Everything shattered. And my breakdown was because of a broken heart. And my father died in that moment, where no longer did I even have somebody to fight for within my I am or I'm not. So there's that place of I lived to die in some way, and then I died to live. And that breakdown was literally the dying of my heart's total chaos of breaking, so that I could start to live from those new breaths of my idea has been detrimental to my existence. And if I didn't find a new way to identify myself, which actually went right back to the core identity of who I am, which is me with spirit as a child. Trying to please someone else or ensure someone's idea of my identity actually took my life away from me. Until I came back to, it's me and spirit, and we're going to have to figure it out. Whether I'm loved or not by a person, it's me and spirit, and I have to figure it out. And I think that's pretty much what it is for all of us, because we're born in that spirit of breath, and we die in that spirit of breath. And we don't die with people most of the time unless there's a disaster or an accident. We die alone. And there's that beauty of knowing I existed while I was alive. I know you have an ambition because of your strokes to be absolutely full of what it is you are and to produce what it is you're here to produce, because you know how fragile life is. Talk about that, please. Not everybody has that experience.
Well, the first time that I had a stroke, 9 months later, I had a heart attack. And
so how many years ago, so that everybody can see that, this is the results of something?
That was, the first one was 14 years ago. I was very young to be having a stroke and then a heart attack. And, there is a renewed appreciation for life. And it is in one of those moments that we metaphorically, almost literally die, and we are born again. And we see things differently. Today I was with Darlene for quite a while. She says hello, by the way.
Hey, Dee. Darlene.
Yeah. And we were talking about that. The subject came up because in the times that I have had to go to the hospital, every time Darlene has driven me to the hospital and stayed with me. But the dying process is something that most often we do alone. And it is something that we don't necessarily always do in a hospital, but it is something that we can literally die in our own home. And I mean that metaphorically, when all of a sudden, exactly what you said, Sandy, our life isn't working. This isn't working. Something needs to give here because this isn't living.
Right.
And I'm tired of existing.
Right.
Somebody help me because this isn't working. So sometimes there are times when we call death to ourselves because we can no longer suffer living. Something's got to give in order for something to be born again. And there is absolutely the time of, and you have been with me in times of physical crisis with my health. And, I'm back dealing with heart issues again. that you and I were talking about today, right? So the heart is so infinitely intelligent, and the heart is often the first precursor or the first intelligence within us that says something is dying, something needs to die, something needs to be let go of. And I have a friend, Lily and I actually met her years ago down in Evansville, Indiana. Julie Hedges was there as well. Janet Schnell, who is a suicidologist. And I asked her, I said, Janet, in suicide, is there a particular time of the year that it's more prevalent? I assumed that it was Christmas, Thanksgiving, all of that. And she said, no, actually, Denise, the most prevalent time for suicide is the spring. It's the spring, coming out of the cycle of winter, at least in North America, coming out of the cycle of winter of death and into rebirth. Sometimes I wonder if there isn't a mass consciousness, particularly when we're talking about Easter and the number of the billions of people that go through the ceremonies or the ceremony of. That makes sense to you, Sand?
Well, Freddie died on the equinox.
Yeah.
The morning of spring.
Yeah.
And I was able to say to Susie that there's that place where it is a known energetic fact that if someone does not have the inertia, the stamina to break soil and come up and meet the sun, then it's a good time to die.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't have the strength or the fortitude to continue. And just like winter, they fold within the elegance of the equinox because it's perfection rather than denial.
Yes.
So I understand that completely.
Yeah. Yes. The stroke that I had in 2004 happened during Easter. And 9 months later, it was in the autumn. And it was Easter somewhere in the southern hemisphere. But there is then an understanding that life is very, 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 very short. It's very fleeting. And I say that to people. Because for some people, their life seems long, and is this ever just going to, can we just get this over with? And I think, oh my goodness, I've been accused of, there not being enough hours in the day for me to live. Especially when it comes to the little ones at the children's home, right? But we have to be prepared for the change. And Sandy, let us not forget that when any one of us goes through the process of a death or a death without dying, in order to truly live again, it often means that we are going to be living differently. And not everyone or everything is going to accept your rebirth.
That's right. That's right. Everything that I was a part of when I had my rebirth, my breakdown, my evolution, my transformation is gone.
Yeah.
Within the timeliness of me really going into the consequences of knowing where I was done.
Yes.
And having to allow the threads of it to unwind, untangle, and really find their completion. And to be honest about the fact that because I became different and changed my family of origins energy, and the light hit my prism differently, that if I hung on to the past, I was being unjust. And I would regret holding on to it. And because it was going to find its own way to what was next because it was their turn to face their rebirth also without me because I'm no longer the person that they knew.
Right.
So the transformation is really phenomenal. And I want to say this really quick before I forget to say it. How beautiful that you're talking about Easter, that your time came at Easter, that people want to, whatever's going to implode happens around Easter. God bless my sister-in-law, Susie. She lost her first husband, my brother, Tony, on Easter Day. And her second beloved, Freddie, the week of the Holy Week of Palm Sunday and Easter.
Mm-hmm.
His wake is on Palm Sunday. And it's different years, different months, different times, but it's the season. It's the light, it's the angle, it's the energy, it's the integrity of the time. We can't make this stuff up.
Right.
Two of the beloveds of one person live and love and offer such profoundness to so many that we're all brought to our knees on the holy season to face resurrection.
Yes. And ascension.
And ascension.
And not everyone understands that. Yes. Yes. Transcension, transformation, transfiguration, yes. And ascension. And not everyone understands. Suzanne, hey Suzanne, is also adding that she was there with her father when he passed. Death is such a sacred thing. And I was talking recently, one of my clients is a nurse, and she happens to be a night shift nurse when many of the people at the hospital pass. And I mentioned to her, I said, well, what sacred work you do? And she said, me? What are you talking about, Denise? I'm not a minister. And I said, my love, you are a registered nurse / spirit doula. You are there at the birth of someone going back home to spirit. And she looked at me and she said, oh my God, Denise, I never thought of it that way. I said, yours is the last face, the last touch, the last voice that many people will ever hear or experience or touch while they are on the physical plane. And she said, Denise, I never thought of it that way before.
Yeah. Freddie came to me in a dream. I'm in San Francisco area. It's the night. My last dream, I wake up in the morning, text Susie, all the details. 2 dreams in a row. And then when I call her, it's when he's passing. And she says, do you have him? Do you have him? Do you have him? And I said, I've got him, I've got him, I've got him. And later on, it was like, Sandy, did you have him? And I said, Freddie found me in dream time and gave me all these images and all these symbols. And I will be blunt and absolutely pristine in saying, I did not know the details of these things in the puzzle until I was in the first pew on my knees at his service when the fabric on his coffin was there, and it was the fabric that was in the dream, and the man of color who was there in the dream is the priest who's a Indian man of color. And when all of a sudden I'm realizing, oh my God, everything that Freddie brought to me in the dream is now coming together in the moment of the church. And I said to Susie before I understood it in the church, it's not that I'm good and I got him. He was good to find me wherever I was and to give me the symbolism and to let me know this is it. So Freddie's letting us know he's making it to the other side. It's not that I have to get him to the other side. Where the hell am I so I can get him there?
Right.
And the experience was so witnessed with such had a dream. It was, I had a dream. You better write that. And this is that. And this is that. And it was a documentation of someone's ability to say, I'm alive as I'm manifesting.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened with my friend Caroline from Vancouver. I'm here in New Hampshire. She's in Vancouver. And as she was passing, I wake up at 7-something in the morning, look at the computer, look at all her photographs, and close it, and her brother calls me later and says she passed exactly when I opened up the computer, looking at all the pictures and tucking it. We are phenomenal in our relationship with spirit. And I am sad to say not all of us know it to the depth of our capacity until those moments of transition. We surprise ourselves.
We do.
I'm seeing surprisable.
Yeah. Some people are saying that we have frozen. So I'm going to, if you can hear me, if you just go ahead and refresh the page.
Yeah, you did. Your image froze a couple of times. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. So, and we're still rolling, so perhaps it is a, yeah. Hey, Mary Ellen. If you could just refresh, that would be beautiful. Hey, Sue Madewell.
Hey, Sue.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, Mary Ellen.
Sometimes we get into these subject matters, and Cynthia is saying she refreshed the screen, so I'm hoping that yeah, after they refreshed, they got us back. How interesting, refreshing, and here we are back. Sandy.
Dana.
What inspires you to be alive?
Oh, I will share the point where my inspiration wilted, and that was with the dying of my horses. Having them for 20 some odd years and putting them both into the ground, there was that identity complex shift of who am I without my horses. Oh, Tango's out there. I'm here. And then what inspired me to be alive were the other animals out in the yard. My watching Bobby make certain that those that were in hardship were found and brought to our land. He was taking care of the orphans, as you know, that you do, that were animals. And how I have slowly but surely, I thought it would be my art, but it wasn't my art. I thought it would be my love for animals, but it's not really my love for animals. It's, in all due respect, Dana, some of the walk that I do with you, that I do with this place in spirit that says, I have a relationship with spirit that's deeper than my own understanding. And I am blessed with the way I'm allowed to live. And if I do not take advantage of the way I'm allowed to live, I am wasting something that has been bequeathed to me, maybe from other lives, other centuries, other ancestors. And what I love most of all is that, like with going to do work with Freddie and Susie, is that I'm given the gift to feel. I am not at all finished with feeling. I want to feel the way I love. I want to feel the way I'm loved. I want to feel the ones, even Tango, he just went through going to the hospital, and you know, it's one of those things. You come home and I looked at my animal and it's like, it wasn't right. What wakes me up to see that my animal's not right, and it's like, we got to take care of this. I love, and what wakes me up is the backyard, to buy this property, to make Unicorn Fields, which was labeled by Bobby, as magical as it can be.
It is.
And to know that I don't have to be busy every moment. I need to be aware that every moment is busy, and I can just participate, observe, or be available. That, taking the pressure off me, gives me the opportunity to really feel I belong to life. And Sue Madewell knows I'm in my bathrobe more than anybody else she knows. I come out and say hi in my bathrobe. I do the laundry in my bathrobe. I feed the animals in my bathrobe.
She does.
I will walk the horses in my bathrobe. I will say, I begin everything until I have to get dressed up. Not dressed. You've seen me in my bathrobe. So
yes, I have.
And it's interesting because I told my sister-in-law, and I'm sure Bobby knows this, that when it is my time in my coffin, and I will be cremated, I want to have my head on my favorite pillow. I want to have my duvet tucked around me, and I just want to be seen sleeping. I love my bed. That inspires me. Give me a good bed, a good night's sleep, and I'm fine to go. What about you?
Oh my.
Children. I'm not quite as intense, but I can be inspired.
Bobby's saying I can attest to that.
He does know. And I have an assortment of bathrobes. I've got my seasonal bathrobes. I've got my seasonal sheets. You have been tucked into my bed, so you know what they're like. If they ain't fluffy, you're not going to get in.
I love that, and that's the truth. Everybody is having a chuckle, and there are a lot of ladies in the house that are saying, yeah, me too, Sandy. So, oh, fun.
Good.
Yeah.
What inspires you?
Well, what inspires me is really life in that place of
Hang on. Go ahead.
Of the magic. Oh, is it Tango wanting to come in?
He does.
Hey, Tango.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
He's got love to stay. Come here. Okay, go ahead. Come. Yes.
We want to see him.
Yeah, let's see if he comes up. Here he comes. Come on. You want to come up? Yes. Well, yes.
There he is.
My man. My other man.
It's all of that inspires me to get up. There is so much magic in life. There's a lot of crap-a-diddle. There's a lot of hardship and heartache and all those kind of things. But even in and amongst all of that, there is a lot of magic. There are miracles. There's magic, synchronicity, and all divinely, I believe, orchestrated and we're kind of the conductor.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't escape me here in the Enchanted Forest. I get excited when I see the groundhog sitting up last night with an apple in his hands, a little chubby, with the apple, and Todd's got binoculars for me so I can just see his little face eating the apples that I put out for him. As I've gotten older, truly, it's the simple things.
Yes.
It's the simple things that inspire me. It is going to the children's home and being with all those babies with their runny noses and wiping their noses and combing their hair and hugging them and loving them and being with them and letting them know that they're not alone, that there are good adults in the world. There is love in the world. That inspires me. My husband inspires me. My children inspire me. My daughter keeps me in line. And the people that I love inspire me. And there are times, when I think to myself, you and I talked about that today, I just hope that this body lasts long enough that I can have every ounce of everything that I desire to yet experience.
Right. Right.
Because I love people. And one of the criticisms that, I've had over the years is that I love people too much.
Oh my God, that's been my charge since my mother. Sandy, you love too much.
Yes.
You're too much. You're
Yes.
just too much. How can you make too much? It's who I am.
Yes. Yes. So love inspires me, whether it's at the children's home or whether it's a group of friends or it's in a classroom setting with people learning. Love inspires me, and the many ways that love exists in the world, and the many ways that love expresses itself in the world, even in places that sometimes we don't want to look, we don't want to be. Today, Darlene said to me, "Does it frighten you before you go up on a vision quest? Does it scare you being up there for, a couple of days, just you, yourself, and God and the wild beasts?" And I said, it doesn't scare me. That doesn't scare me because I always know that Spirit and Creator has my back. I'm actually at home up on that hill by myself with Spirit. Oh, she said, I guess I never thought of it that way. I would be worried about the rattlesnakes and the coyotes. But to me, the rattlesnakes and the coyotes aren't at forefront. It's a time for me to be with the Creator. It's time for me to be with Spirit. Something you said earlier about love. There are those people who have dedicated their life to the love of God. And their spouse, their significant other, is Spirit. It is God. And I think that's beautiful.
It really is. What inspires me also is when that voice said, like, oops, I gotta go. And I'm inspired to be a part of what is really happening.
Yes.
Freddie's life was really happening. His dying was really happening, and inspired me to be present, to participate beyond my own idea of what I like or don't like.
Right.
To be available to the surprise, to the beauty and the ugly of life as it's being beautiful.
Yeah. Yes.
And it also inspired me to be in church and to watch it. And I thought this exactly when it happened for our school with the ordination, and that is how I sat watching the Catholic priest hold and put his hand up for energy, how he does ritual, how he does ceremony, how he does prayer, all the things that we teach, and to know that each organization of spirit or religion or identity has ritual, even if the ritual is to make sure you've got a great cup of coffee. Just saying, so I can go back to bed and get cozy in that pillow and that cover and get ready for the inspiration. And to know that what inspires me also is that place of knowing I'm never, ever, ever lost from a sunrise or a sunset.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the great things that I know from me is that because I've moved so many times and had so many different places of residence and so many wonderful animals, that I always know my clock is ticking. How long will I live here?
Right.
How long will I stay here? How long will I know this person? And I can always feel when the time shifts and goes, oh my God, I'm no longer just happy to be here. It's starting to say goodbye to me and I better get ready. And how many places I've said goodbye to because next has called.
Yes.
And even if you live in one town for your whole life, next is the next day, the next moment, the next event. My life is radical, and I've had to make peace with that. And I'm inspired by being radical.
So, and with that, We're past the top of the hour.
Okay.
And I just want to say thank you to everybody that showed up for life and showed up for life with Sandy and I. And yeah, Sandy, last words before we sign off tonight.
Amen to Freddie and to Susie and to all of us,
Mm-hmm.
because life is so precious, and
Yes.
we never know when it begins, and we never know when it ends. So live.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Good night, everyone. Good night, Sandy.
Good night, Dana. Good night, everybody. Thank you so very much.